In our headlines on this Monday afternoon, August 12th, here in South Korea. The country's Olympic team brings home 13 gold, 9 silver and 10 bronze medals from Paris to rank 8th at the latest Summer Games, which came to a close this past Sunday. Meanwhile, Ukraine marks its most significant incursion into Russian territory following Moscow's invasion in early 2022, an event the pundits believe takes the war into a new phase after weeks of Kremlin's battlefield gains. And back on the local front, findings for the first half of this year show the number of foreign learners to South Korea surpassing 200,000 for the first time. The Paris Olympics came to a close this past weekend with emphasis on the strides made towards gender equality in the latest games and with much excitement about the 2028 meet in LA. Our Kim Jong-sil starts us off.
The 17-day international sports event has come to a close. For the first time at the Olympics, a winner of women's marathon got her medal at the closing ceremony. Sifan Hassan from the Netherlands received her gold. Often referred to as the highlight of the Olympics, until now, men's marathon winners would traditionally receive their medals at the closing ceremony. This time at the Paris Olympics, though, the last day ceremony was saved sorely for women. South Korea continued collecting medals until the final day. Sung Seung-min claimed bronze in the women's modern pentathlon on Sunday, becoming the first Asian woman to win an Olympic medal in the sport. 21-year-old Park Hae-jung won silver in the women's over 81-kilogram weightlifting, the first Olympic weightlifting medal in 8 years for South Korea. Those added to South Korea's medal tally as the country finished 8th with 13 gold, 9 silver, and 10 bronze medals. This is a joint highest number of golds won by South Korea, tying with its record from Beijing 2008 and London 2012. The U.S. won the most medals with 126. The highlight of the closing ceremony came with the Hollywood-style handover. Tom Cruise appeared like a scene from a Mission Impossible movie standing on the roof of the Stade de France. He leaped down into the stadium before speeding off on a motorcycle with the Olympic flag. The closing ceremony then transitioned into a video of the actor skydiving down to the Hollywood sign, which was decorated with the 5 Olympic rings, giving a sneak peek of the LA Olympics in 2028. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
And President Yoon Suk-yeol has praised the performance of Team Korea at the Paris Olympics for an unforgettable display of inspiration. In a social post on Sunday, the president applauded the team's achievements despite its smallest athlete presence at the latest Summer Games since the 1984 Olympics. Indeed, despite its small team this time around, Korea made some big wins, garnering 13 gold, 9 silver and 10 bronze medals at this year's Olympics in Paris. That being said, President Yoon thanked the team for its efforts and pledged continued support for sports. Also, President Yoon Suk-yeol resumed work on Sunday, ending his week-long summer holiday, during which he met with market merchants and the nation's troops. His first task was tapping incumbent Vice Justice Minister Shim Woo-jung for the post of Prosecutor General. Meanwhile, tomorrow, that is Tuesday, the president is expected to veto the opposition-led bills on broadcasting, unionized workers, and a nationwide cash handout. He is also expected to grant special pardons to mark this year's National Liberation Day on August 15th to a number of people, including former Gyeongsangnam-do Governor Kim Kyung-soo. Also, sources within the ruling party claim President Yoon and First Lady Kim Gon-hee may meet with former President Lee Myung-bak and his wife for dinner for talks on exports of nuclear power plants, as the former Lee Myung-bak administration sealed Korea's first deal with the UAE. And come Thursday this week, President Yoon Suk-yeol will make public his thoughts on unification of the Korean peninsula. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young explains.
President Yoon Suk-yeol will initiate a new discourse on Korean unification as he delivers a speech this week to mark Korea's liberation from Japanese colonization on Thursday. An official from the office of the president told Arirang News that the South Korean leader will share his thoughts on unification with the public during his speech on Liberation Day, building on the national community unification formula introduced by former President Kim Young-sam in his own Liberation Day speech 30 years ago. The formula envisions a three-stage unification, beginning with reconciliation and cooperation, a union between the South and North before they completely unite as a country. The two Koreas are still in a state of ceasefire after the 1950-53 war, with tensions escalated by the North's nuclear and missile threat. Yoon is expected to emphasize the need to update the unification discourse to reflect the changing times as seen in global politics and inter-Korean relations. He is also likely to highlight the value of liberal democracy, taking into account the human rights violations by the North Korean regime. Yoon has previously said unification is needed to expand the universal values of freedom and human rights enshrined in South Korean democracy. South Korea's constitution does not recognize the North as a separate state and seeks peaceful unification based on a free and democratic order. Meanwhile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un earlier this year called to revise the North's constitution, deeming Seoul its principal enemy and setting out to completely occupy and subjugate the South in the event of war. The Kim regime has ignored Seoul's call for dialogue and diplomacy towards a peaceful resolution of Pyongyang's threat to regional security. In his Liberation Day speech in 2022, Yoon introduced this audacious initiative, a roadmap for the denuclearization of North Korea, with corresponding measures to provide food, energy, infrastructure and healthcare for its people. A survey last year showed 43.8% of South Korean adults believe unification is necessary, down 10 percentage points from 2019. Resolving North Korea's nuclear threat was deemed the most important task for unification, followed by the easing of military tensions, then economic and cultural exchanges. Ulchi, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, across the border, North Korea resorted to floating more waste balloons into South Korea this past Sunday. Our correspondent Peunji has the latest.
North Korea has once again flown trash-carrying balloons towards South Korea. South Korea's military said Sunday that the regime flew around 240 balloons, but only around 10 of the balloons, mostly carrying paper and plastic bottles, landed in the northern part of Gyeonggi-do province. It added that the balloons did not contain any dangerous material. An expert noted that this reflects the urgency with which Kim Jong-un insisted on another launch.
I think this shows that this is a country where the orders are given at the very top by Kim Jong-un himself, and then the people on the ground, the military in this instance, carry them out without questioning. I think they must have realized that the wind was blowing in the wrong direction, but they launched the balloons anyway.
This is the 11th time that the North has sent trash balloons since late May. In recent weeks, the regime has flown around 3,800 balloons in what it said was retaliation for the flying of anti-Pyongyang propaganda across the border by South Korean civilian activists. In response, the South has been activating loudspeakers near the border since late last month, blasting broadcasts of propaganda messages and K-pop songs.
So apart from the summit with Putin, this year hasn't gone well for Kim Jong-un. So when you add the South Korean defector groups' balloon launches, I think the regime is becoming really desperate to shut down this heterodox propaganda that's coming into the country.
This also comes after Kim Jong-un delivered harsh comments toward the South, calling the country trash. While visiting a flood-hit area and meeting victims of those affected by the recent devastating flood, the North Korean leader claimed that the Korean media reports on the North's flood damage were fabricated. Seoul's Unification Ministry assessed Monday that by criticizing the South, North Korea intends to minimize public dissent by redirecting blame to external forces. Peunji, Arirang News.
And staying on the peninsula, South Korea and the U.S. are set to kick off their annual Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise next Monday. The exercise seeks to strengthen their combined defense posture against North Korea's provocations ranging from ballistic missile testing to GPS jamming to cyber attacks. In particular, Seoul and Washington will aim to bolster their capability to deter and defend against the regime's weapons of mass destruction. The exercise will run for 11 days until August 29th. Ukraine's latest counter-offensive advances into Russian territory appear to be forcing the Kremlin into a defensive posture. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
During the 2.5 years of the war in Ukraine, Russia has been on the offensive for the most part, with Ukraine doing all it can to defend itself. But the tide has seemingly turned, with Ukraine now sending troops into Russia. The Ukrainian offensive in Russia's Kursk region is now on the 6th day, with Moscow calling it a federal emergency and admitting that Ukrainian troops have advanced far into its territory. According to Moscow's defense ministry on Sunday, Ukrainian troops have advanced some 30 kilometers inside Russia in what is being considered the most significant infiltration within the Russian territory since the war began in February 2022. The comments come a day after Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky confirmed that his troops are fighting in Russia.
Today, I received several reports from Commander-in-Chief Syrskyi regarding the front lines and our actions to push the war onto the aggressor's territory. I'm grateful to every Defense Forces unit for ensuring that. Ukraine is proving that it can indeed restore justice and ensure the necessary pressure on the aggressor.
The statements mark the first time that the Ukrainian president had officially admitted to the incursion, having remained quiet despite being days into its operation. In response to the Ukrainian offensive, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova accused Ukraine of intimidating the peaceful population of Russia. Meanwhile, Russia has continued its airstrikes in major Ukrainian cities overnight, including the capital Kyiv, killing 2 people, including a 4-year-old child and his father. Kyiv's Air Force says it shot down 53 of the 57 Russian attack drones, adding that Russia had used North Korea's KN-23 short-range ballistic missiles during the offensive. With Ukraine sending its troops inside Russia and Moscow looking to both counter and respond to their offensives, the prolonged war could see more bloodshed moving forward. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back on the local front, findings for the first half of this year show the number of foreign learners to South Korea surpassing 200,000 for the first time. Our Yoon covers the numbers and their broader implications.
According to data released by the Korea Tourism Organization on Monday, the number of foreigners that came to South Korea to study for training or other learning surpassed 200,000 in the first half of this year. That is a 50.6% increase from the same period the previous year, and also a new record. The KTO suggests the reason for the increase is the continued influence of the global K-wave that has resulted in more foreigners wanting to learn the Korean language or study in Korea. By nationality, around 55.2%, or 112,000 of the 204,000 visitors were from China, followed by 33,000 from Vietnam, 6,900 from Japan, 6,700 from Mongolia, and 5,000 from Uzbekistan. And more than 3,000 visitors came from both France and the United States. The KTO says global interest in South Korea has increased due to the influence of K-content, like K-pop, K-movies, K-dramas, K-beauty, and K-food. The number of foreigners visiting Korea for educational purposes had steadily increased before the COVID-19 pandemic in the second half of 2019 to 191,000 people, but dropped significantly to 30,000 in the second half of 2020. Meanwhile, the South Korean government and universities outside the capital area have agreed to more MOUs and partnerships to increase the number of international students. Universities have been creating new programs catered to foreign students wanting to learn the Korean language and culture, as the government implements policies to ease visa restrictions for international students. A researcher from the Korea Small Business Institute, a research institution for the sustainable development of small and medium-sized enterprises, said that rather than bringing experts from abroad, it is more realistic to add international students who can speak Korean into the labor force, adding that the government should consider expanding programs and support measures. Yoon, Arirang News.
And in other news, the risks of relying simply on solar batteries for lunar exploration were well demonstrated by neighboring Japan earlier this year. That being said, a research team here has developed and tested a nuclear battery instead. Our Cha Yoon-kyung has more.
Japan became the 5th country in the world to land on the moon in February, but the spacecraft had a problem with intermittent contact. This was due to damage to its solar panels that charged its solar batteries, the major source of electrical power.
It is possible that the panel of the solar battery was not pointed at the sun, not as it was originally planned.
On the moon, it is impossible to see sunlight for 14 days when the lunar night comes. During this period, some devices can suffer permanent damage. This is why it is impossible to explore the moon by relying solely on solar batteries. A national research team here made a small 10-watt atomic battery using a plutonium isotope in 2022 and sent it into orbit on the Nuri rocket. The battery endured the launch and separation processes and stably produced 120 milliwatts of electricity for a year and a half while in low Earth orbit.
As the battery was exposed to radiation and extreme temperatures, it served as references to show that the atomic battery we made might be able to work stably for more than 6 years in space.
The Korean atomic battery that has been tested this time will show its ability for moon exploration in 2032. The only countries that can produce and use atomic batteries are the United States, Russia, and South Korea. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
It has been sleepless here in Seoul for the past 3 weeks in a row as the capital city endures a total of 22 tropical nights as of this Monday. Now, this is said to be the 3rd longest period of such sweltering conditions since 1907. A tropical night refers to temperatures hovering at a minimum of 25 degrees Celsius between 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. Temperatures today are also expected to feel as high as 35 degrees Celsius in most parts of the country. Weather experts believe the prolonged heat wave will continue into next week as well.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. With the U.S. Democratic National Convention set to take place in Chicago next week, President Joe Biden, former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have been confirmed as speakers at the convention. The Democratic Convention, which runs from August 19th to 22nd, will see Vice President Kamala Harris formally accept the Democratic Party's nomination to run for the presidency. Harris, who is the first black woman and first Indian American to secure a major party's presidential nomination in the U.S., raised a historic $310 million for her campaign last month. Over the weekend, Biden also gave his first interview since withdrawing from the White House race, telling CBS Sunday Morning that he quit his re-election bid to defeat Trump. Biden said he feared that an intra-party battle regarding his candidacy would be a real distraction for Democrats and that he would do whatever Vice President Harris thinks needs to be done to beat Trump. Moving over to Uganda, the collapse of a landfill site in the country's capital, Kampala, has killed at least 21 people as of Sunday, with local police saying that casualties may rise further. After weeks of torrential rain, a hill of garbage at the city's only landfill site collapsed late on Friday, burying and crushing homes on the edges of the site as residents slept. Kampala City Police confirmed that at least 21 deaths have been reported so far, while at least 14 have been rescued. The Kampala City Authority added that while details of the accident were yet unclear, there was a structural failure in waste mass that triggered the landslide. President Yoweri Museveni ordered an investigation into the incident while stating that he had directed the removal of all residents living near the Kitizi landfill site. Now, Kampala authorities have reportedly been considering closing the landfill site and moving into a larger area outside the city, but the plan has so far failed to take place. Following Friday's plane crash in Brazil that killed 62 people on board, the chief of the Brazilian Aviation Accident Investigation Center said Sunday that 100% of the data from the aircraft's black boxes had been fully extracted and are being analyzed. Speaking at a press conference, Marcelo Moreno said that the black boxes, which include voice recordings and flight data, are being analyzed by Canadian and French experts, technicians from the manufacturer of the aircraft, ATR, and the engine manufacturer, Pratt & Whitney, alongside the authority. The ATR-72 turboprop, bound for Sao Paulo from Cascavel, crashed at around 1:30 p.m. local time on Friday, some 80 kilometers northwest of Sao Paulo. According to the Brazilian Air Force, the aircraft was flying normally until 1:21 p.m. before losing radar contact at 1:22 p.m. and no emergency was reported by pilots. Moreno said a preliminary report would be released within 30 days. Australian Olympic breaking athlete Rachel Gunn, known as B-Girl Ray Gunn, broke social media with her performance at the Olympic event on Friday. 36-year-old Gunn, a lecturer at Korean University in Sydney, researching cultural politics of breaking, left fans puzzled by her dancing, which included laying on the stage with incomplete moves and flailing around with her hand on her chin and jumping around, appearing to mimic a kangaroo. Gunn lost all 3 of her round-robin battles without scoring a single point at the Games. While Gunn received ridicule on social media, Olympic breaking chief judge Martin Mgibility Gillian said B-Girl Ray Gunn had done nothing wrong even though she failed to score a point, adding that she was trying to be original and bring something new to the table. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Not much of an update in terms of weather as the searing stretch of heat continues today and through this week, with temperatures showing no signs of backing off. And there will be a chance of rain during the day. 5 to 40 millimeters of passing showers are in the forecast, along with thunderstorms during the day today. And UV rays will beam down until that rain passes by. Afternoon temperatures look like being similar to slightly higher than yesterday. Seoul and Daejeon getting up to 35 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju should see a high of 34 degrees this afternoon. The first half of the week looks like being hotter, with rain in the forecast on Jeju from Wednesday into Friday. However, that rain will not bring much relief from the heat to the island. Meanwhile, Thursday marks National Liberation Day here in Korea. Heat usually dies down a bit around the holiday, but it does not seem like this will be the case this year. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. Right, that ends our Monday afternoon newscast. Coming up next is our daily panel session, and today we address financial market stability.